In this webinar, I am going to discuss how we use a web-based COBIT assessment as a service to perform a COBIT assessment of process capability. Step 1. Refine the process instances. Clarify which process instances are within the scope of the assessment and identify the specific activities and work products. Step 2. Map enterprise processes to the reference model. Associate and record the cross-references for the activities and the work products. Step 3. Identify the assessment inputs. Determine the business units and which enterprise process activities and work products will be assessed. Step 4. Document the data collection strategy and how to use the tool to collect, record, and store the evidence. Collect evidence for capability levels 1, 2, and 3. Step 5. Coordinate assignment logistics. Assign responsibility. Collect the objective evidence required to evaluate the processes within scope and maintain an audit trail. Step 6. Validate the data. Evaluate and confirm that the evidence collected is objective, sufficient, and consistent, and the cross-referencing is reliable. Step 7. Rate the process attribute. For each process assessed, a rating is assigned based on the validated data for each process. Step 8. Report the assessment results. The assessment results are documented and reported, together with suggested improvements, to the assessment sponsor. Step 9. Assemble the assessment record and hand over the assessment record to the sponsor. When determining the assessment input, start with identifying the process instances required to achieve the selected process outcomes and finalize the scope of the assessment. In other words, identify the inputs, outputs, and transformation activities of the process instances required to achieve the selected outcomes. For capability levels 2.1, 2.2, 3.1, and 3.2, determine the required management practices and work products. Before we continue, let me clarify the different processes and how they are used in the assessment. The enterprise process would be the organization's preferred process. However, the implementation of this process may differ across its business units, and our assessment may include one or more business units. Keep in mind that the assessment may not cover the entire process, and therefore we need to identify the process instances to be included in the assessment. Finally, we need to identify the reference process against which the assessment will be performed and from which the gap determined. If the assessment is not an enterprise-wide process, it will be for one or more business units, and it will include a number of process instances. The assessment will be conducted against a reference process, which in this case will be COBIT. So an activity in the enterprise process may also be in the business unit process and the selected process instance. The assessor rates this process using the reference process and keeps an audit trail linking the assessed activity and the process instance being evaluated. For each business unit within scope of the assessment, we identify the activities in the process instances selected for the assessment. For each of these activities and work products, we map back to the enterprise process, we collect evidence, we cross-reference the data, we validate the evidence, and we rate the attribute. And we repeat this for each of the activities and the work products within the process. The assessment audit trail commences with recording the current state of the activities and work products that are to be assessed. Maintain these records for possible review. Without a reliable record of the current state, should the assessor's ratings be challenged in the future, this record can be examined. List all the process activities selected to deliver the outcome expected together with the required work products. Use the assessment as a service to map enterprise process activities to the COBIT process activities. The assessment as a service records how each COBIT process activity maps to the enterprise process activity. Assess the activities and work products that have been included in the process. Follow the documented data collection strategy. Data should be collected in a systematic manner using an explicitly identified strategy and technique that is easily demonstrable. The approach to data collection must be clearly documented. It must be possible to demonstrate through the material retained that it was followed. All evidence collected should be easily associated with each process involved in the assessment. Use a central repository for the collected evidence. Ensure strong access control and security to protect the assessment record. Meet and interview the process owners and the process participants. Request process owners and process participants to prepare and submit evidence supporting the activities they have performed. Agree with the sponsor the length of time available for data collection. Store and collect evidence with the activities performed in each process. Collect evidence to demonstrate each process activity and work product is being implemented. Add the evidence, the notes, files, and captured screens. Systematically collecting data is a key element of the assessment process. Depending on the processes to be reviewed, there's potentially a large amount of data to be collected. Use the tool to gather the evidence and to maintain traceability of collected evidence to its source. Consider what evidence is required and the type of evidence that would be best. Attach the objective evidence directly to the activity. Note that an assessment tool makes reviewing the evidence collected for each process a lot easier. Evidence to review may include the notes made in the tool against the process activity, documents uploaded as evidence of the activity being performed, screen captures stored in the tool as evidence of the activity performed. Each activity and work product is rated on the strength of the objective evidence available. Add any assessor comments regarding the assessment made to assist with any subsequent review of rating. Validate that the evidence is objective and sufficient to cover the scope and purpose of the assessment, and that data as a whole are consistent. Review the collected evidence online. Make notes requesting clarification if required. Assessing capability. The assessment process starts with identifying the activity or work product as being within scope. Map this activity or work product to the enterprise process. Collect evidence to support the performance of the activity or the work product. Cross-reference the data between the reference model and the performed activity or work product. Validate that sufficient evidence has been collected, that the data is complete, and then rate the attribute and complete the assessment. This information can be captured using the assessment as a service. First of all, capture the information of the process as performed. Identify the business unit, the month of the assessment, the COBIT cross-reference, the enterprise cross-reference, and the status of the assessment. Add the assessor rating, record any improvements recommended, and set the remediation priority. Examine each process activity and work product and rate the attribute as being not achieved, partially achieved, largely achieved, or fully achieved. Maintaining cross-references to the evidence collected of the process being performed is extremely important. Use the assessment as a service tool to capture the COBIT cross-reference as well as the reference of the work being performed, the objective evidence. Verify the fulfillment of the evidentiary requirements for the assessment class. Assessors should review the collected evidence to ensure there is sufficient evidence for the results of the assessment to be trusted. Evidence can be either in the form of direct evidence, such as a document or an outcome, or indirect, such as plans to produce particular outcomes. This evidence would have been uploaded into the assessment tool. In general, the primary source of evidence will come from interviews, which will be confirmed through an examination of work products and from best practices for the process being assessed to see whether the process outcomes are being achieved. This evidence can be recorded in the notes of the assessment tool. Maintain traceability between the objective evidence and the process attribute rating assigned. Ensure that for each of the process ratings, there's adequate objective evidence and that there's traceability. Report the results of the assessment. The assessment as a service produces the assessment results automatically in a summarized dashboard of the assessment. Finally, assemble the assessment record and hand over to the assessment sponsor. Contact us for more information about the COBIT 5 Assessment as a Service and the next COBIT 5 Assessor course and certification exam.